Have you ever wondered why certain bands resonate with you, even when they play a style of music that isn't your usual preference? A few years ago, I discovered a band that I had never heard of before. I discovered them through the channel Hammerheart Metal Reviews. They were a power metal band, but there was something different about them. They were power metal, but they also had these progressive rock elements to their sound. I really connected with this band, even though power metal is not one of my preferred genres. Today I'm talking about the band Judicator. They are an American power metal band. They formed in 2012 by John Yelland and Alicia Cordisco. They were initially a duo, but then they took on additional members. They have released 6 full-length albums and 1 EP, and now this is their 7th. Their first few albums included King of Rome from 2012 and Sleepy Plessau from 2013. These albums established them as a power metal band. The sound of these albums could be compared to the band Blind Guardian. Conversely, Sleepy Plessau had more of a complex song arrangements and used harsh vocals. However, some of the critics complained about the flat production and repetitive riffs. But the band was determined to continue moving forward, so they expanded into a full lineup. By the time of the third album, At the Expense of Humanity, they decided to do something different, and they decided to tackle a difficult subject about losing a loved one. That album received positive reviews and was praised for its improved production quality and thought-provoking lyrics. Then came their 4th album, The Last Emperor, from 2018. This one continued their power metal sound. It featured an appearance from Hansi Kirsch of Blind Guardian. But then the band had to deal with a major setback. That was the departure of co-founder and guitarist, the main songwriter, Alicia Cordisco. That was in September of 2020. This coincided with the release of their 5th album, Let There Be Nothing, which was a concept album about Flavius Belisarius. He was a military commander of the Byzantine Empire. This album received mostly favorable reviews, and some critics considered them to be one of the best modern power bands in the current metal scene. Even though Alicia Cordisco was still part of that band for this album's creation, her departure caused the band to make a change in their songwriting style. That leads us to The Majesty of Decay from 2022. This was the first album I had listened to from the band, and I reviewed it on my channel. This album is also considered to be a very important album in the band's evolution. It was the first album where singer John Yelland wrote all the music and lyrics. This album was viewed as a turning point, with many reviewers noting a more progressive direction in their sound. This album moved Judicator away from their earlier Blind Guardian worship by adding more of a progressive rock sound. In addition to the prog, The Majesty of the Decay incorporated elements of heavy metal, thrash metal, and progressive metal, and that created this very complex sound. Not only that, most of the songs in the album were between 5 and 9 minutes long, which allowed for more intricate song structures. I remember in my last review, I said they sounded like Blind Guardian meets Dream Theater. If you want to support this channel and get some cool perks, for just 99 cents a month, you get early access to my videos. For $2.99 a month, you not only get early access, but you can request video topics. Hit the join button below, or check the link in the video description. Now comes their latest album, Concord, from 2025. This album explores themes of the American West, and it's a return to a more straightforward, hook-driven heavy metal. The sound of this can be compared to bands like Blind Guardian, Ice Earth, and Judas Priest, but they still haven't abandoned their power metal sound. The downside to this was that they moved away from the progressive elements that were apparent in The Majesty of Decay, and this album also has more of a streamlined songwriting approach as opposed to the longer prog metal songs of the aforementioned previous album. But on a positive note, they make up for the lack of prog with more powerful, hooky choruses, so that means the songs are catchier and they will stick in your head more. There's also less of a cheesiness factor on this album. It goes for more of a heavy power metal sound, maybe something like Manowar. As for the vocals, John Yelland still sounds very good with his tenor vocal style. The album's also about the Wild West, which is something I don't think very common with power metal bands, but they were able to portray it very well. One thing you will notice that even though there's less prog, they make up for it with some memorable songs. So with that being said, let me go through the album tracks. The album opens with Call Us Out of Slumber. The first thing you hear are these cowboy-style guitar chords, and I guess that was to set the scene for what the album is about. But the song progresses and goes into some melodic leads. After this, they start to play some heavy metal riffs, and they pick up the pace with some fast-paced power metal-style drumming. I thought it was a good song to open the album, and it sets the mood for the album and lets you know that this is going to be more of a power metal album. The next song is called Sawtooth. This one has some very memorable guitar riffs. It reminded me of some of those Iron Maiden style guitar riffs. And here they bring back a little bit of that progressive sound. The song also has some of those galloping guitars that are common with power metal. And the song shows the band focusing more on melody, which includes some catchy choruses and some memorable guitar riffs. And some of the riffs are on the heavier side with more of a chunkiness in their sound. After this is a song called Johanna's Song. This one had more of a very heavy and big and epic sound. I was also happy to hear that some of the progressive rock sound is coming back for this track. It almost sounds like something you would hear from a prog band in the 70s, but with a slightly heavier sound. I think this song had what I remember from the last album, The Majesty of Decay. It was more of a mix of prog and metal, as opposed to the first two songs of the album, which are more power metal and heavy metal. The next song is called A Miracle of Life. This is where they go back to that heavy sound that was apparent on the first two songs. This has more of that Blind Guardian style power metal, mixed with some heavy metal style guitar riffs. Also had a darker sound, and it was a nice transition from the previous song that was a little on the softer side. So if you like power metal that's on the heavier side, this would be a good song to check out. There's also a single and music video. And let me reiterate that I really like the guitar riff on the song. So it might be one of my favorites on the album. But not only that, the song has a surprise twist at the end of the song. They play this short bass guitar melody, and then they have someone come out and play the saxophone with the band. So that was a nice surprise. The next song is called Weeping Willow, and this one sits right in the middle of the album. It's another song that has a very dark and heavy sound. This one might have a slower pace, but it's filled with some darker sound textures. The main verse section might be softer and moodier, but it shows that the band is able to convey emotion in their songs. It's also a melodic song. You'll find yourself singing the chorus in your head after listening to the full song. This one has some of those progressive elements that I've been talking about on the album, so that was a nice surprise. Now moving towards the second half of the album, the next song is called Imperial. This one brings back more of that classic heavy metal sound, but also has some harsh vocals that seem to come out of nowhere, and they were very unexpected. This one also has some very fast-paced drumming, the kind you usually hear on power metal albums. They also added in some prog elements, but they were used sparingly. I like the song. It was filled with lots of cool guitar riffs. There are three more songs in the album. Next song is called Hold Your Smile. This one's a softer song, has some acoustic guitars and softer keyboards in the background. After about a minute or so, the song gets a little heavier, and they play some chunky guitar riffs. But the song still retained that softer sound that was one of the more slower moving tracks. It almost had this sludgy or doomy kind of sound. The use of keyboards also added another layer of sound, and I feel it works in the context of this song. The penultimate song is called Concord. This one had more of that classic heavy metal sound. Song had lots of energy and some faster rhythms, and that were in addition to the heavier guitar riffs. They also used some vocal harmonies on the song, and I thought it was pretty cool. The last song on the album is called Blood Meridian. This is the longest song that clocks in 8 minutes. This one has some very ominous keyboards in the intro. Then it builds up by setting the scene and telling a story about a child being born in blood and how his mother dies in the night they were born. And as they tell the story, they play heavy guitar riffs. But the song had some tempo changes, so I was happy to hear them adding in some of their progressive elements to the song. The song also has that fast drum beat and the typical power metal sound as they continue the story about the boy who grows up and runs away from home. The song has a very big and epic sound. There are also elements of traditional heavy metal, and that adds to the variety of the sound. The song might catch you by surprise because towards the end, when it gets really heavy, it goes into the section that sounds like thrash metal. But then they surprise you again by playing this country square dancing music that was kind of unexpected, but it made sense in a way because it was how the song ended, and it was in line with the theme of this album. In conclusion, at first I didn't like the album as much because I was expecting more of a progressive metal sound similar to the previous album, The Majesty of Decay. But after a second listen, I really started to enjoy the album a lot more. The album still has a lot to offer, so I recommend you check it out. My score will be 8.5 out of 10. Let me know if you're a fan of this band. If you want to hear my thoughts on The Majesty of Decay, I'll stick that right here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button to show your support. Comment below with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more rock and metal content. Turn on the notifications so you never miss a video. See you in the next one, and keep it heavy.